What a nuisance. Why does he insist on interfering? If he only spoke with me to exchange pleasantries, even I could bear it, but now he's sticking his nose into my business just to satisfy his curiosity. Koji is a perfect example of someone who thinks that it's always good to take an interest in other people's affairs. He probably thinks that he's doing me a favor by prying into my personal life. He couldn't be more wrong. If he keeps this up, I might have to find some way to deal with him. Like Saya said, I have to keep my search for Dr. Ogai a secret. Koji could ruin everything. I didn't have time to fully investigate the Ogai residence today. At this rate, it will probably take several days just to go through the study. Saya didn't believe that I'd find anything to help with the search, but I think there's still a lot to explore. Who knows what I'll discover? The problem is Koji. He knows about the house now. Will he make things difficult? A hair-raising voice calls as I'm about to pass through my gate. Suppressing a shudder, I put on a fake smile and turn to face the writhing mass of rotten flesh that is staring at me with bulging eyes. And who is this supposed to be? No, of course. This is my next-door neighbor Suzumi, a middle-aged painter, I think, who spends all day at home while his wife works. I haven't had much contact with him since the accident. Why is he suddenly talking to me now? What is this? Did he stop me just to deliver a lecture? The flesh beast undulates thoroughly, as though it still has something to say. The sight of it is driving me close to the edge. No, I get it. He's worried that the unsightliness of my house might diminish the image of his own. Damned snob. I flash a token smile, then retreat behind the safety of my gate. I can feel Suzumi's eyes boring into my bag all the way to the front door. Why won't everyone stay out of my life? I just want to live together with Saya, alone where no one will ever bother us. So that's how his neighbor really looks like. Suzumi Yosuke sighs in annoyance as he watches the neighbor boy retreat into his house. What's with his attitude? Even while talking, he kept his eyes averted, as if to avoid looking at something repulsive. Has he always been such an unpleasant young man? No, of course not. When his parents were still alive, he had been a normal youth, a little shy, but sensitive and caring. The unfamiliarity of living alone must be causing him undue stress. If this continues, he might start to develop some serious mental problems. Or is it too late already? Yosuke wonders as he gazes warily at the Sakisaka yard. Even during dinner, Yosuke can't shake the neighboring house from his mind.
今日ね、隣の家の息子に会ったよ。
お隣のって文則お兄ちゃん？
ああ、庭のこと一言言っておいた。
そうよね。せめてあの匂いだけはどうにかしてもらいたいわよね。
The stink coming from the Sakisaka house grows worse each day, and the Suzumi family is at its wit's end.
あの草むらの中に死んだ猫でもいるんじゃないかしら。でも住んでいて気づかないのかしらね。
There might be several dead cats and other dead things in the bushes.
まさかとは思うが、生ゴミをそのまま庭に捨てているんじゃあるまいな。
そんな、いくらなんでもそこまで。
いや、今の様子だとやりかねん。 一日中ずっと雨戸を閉め切って何をやってるのかもわからない。どういう暮らしをしてるのやら。
お兄ちゃん、頭おかしくなっちゃったのかな。これヒロミ、そういう言い方はダメよ。
いや、あれは本当にちょっとどうすぎてる。ひょっとしたら変質狂か何かかもしれんな。
大丈夫なのそれ。
早く自覚して医者にでも行ってもらわんことにはなんともな。
The seconds scroll by, each tick of the clock compounding my agony. When I returned from the Ogai residence, I was greeted by a silent, empty home. Saya had vanished without leaving any clue as to her whereabouts. It is rare for her to go for walks at night. I've often gone with her, however. Such outings always take place in the middle of the night, when no one is around, and never last for more than 2 hours. Right now it's 5 in the morning. Soon the sky will begin to show the first light of dawn. Even if she left right before I returned, she's still been gone for almost half a day. I can't sleep, I can only wait in anguish. I tried to distract myself by painting more rooms, but I couldn't concentrate on the work. If I had known this would happen, I would have left the Ogai house sooner. I wish I hadn't wasted time on Koji. If Saya doesn't return. The thought makes me want to tear out my hair. After its long absence, the terror of true loneliness is too much to bear.
Tadaima!
At last, the cowbell chimes in Saya's long-awaited "I'm home" rings out from the bottom of the stairs. As I jump out of my bed in relief, all of the stress that has built up through the night is released in a wave that threatens to sweep me off my feet. Saya sighs as she climbs the stairs.
Saya, 一体どこに?
My question trails off as I notice the thick bundles of paper that she's carrying under her arms.
それは?
文則のカルテとか手術の記録。今日は古巣の病院に行ってきたの。
Saya drops her bundles on the floor, sending paper flying everywhere, then pulls her favorite cushion over and collapses into it, stretching luxuriously.
こんな夜中に T 台から歩いて戻ってきたのか。
ごめんね。本当はもっと早く帰れると思ってたんだけど、調べ出したらキリがなくて。
She says, skillfully gathering the scattered papers together.
結局全部持ち出してきちゃった。ああ、重かった。
Maybe it's just the exhaustion, but I'm not understanding a word Saya's saying.
だから、そんなもの持ってきてどうするつもりなんだ?
That's a good question.
どうするって、もちろん調べるのよ。うちで時間かけてじっくり。
She replies, holding one MRI photograph after another up to the light.
あら、何やってんだか。あ、これは要チェックかな。あとは、そうなんだ。
At first I think she's just playing around, but the occasional mutters of what she's muttering and the like as she separates photos into a growing pile beside her make me think that this might not be a joke after all.
君、わかるのか?
パパにいろいろと教わったから。
She flashes me a grin, then returns to the papers.
なるほどね。これじゃいつまで経っても直せないよね。
直せないのか?
人間のお医者さんじゃね。
Not by a human doctor? Are there other non-human doctors around? I can't tell if she's being serious.
私でもまだちょっと難しいかな。いろいろと試してからでないと。
She says offhandedly, even as her hands continue to shuffle papers. Watching more closely, I realized that her eyes are scanning each page rapidly, so rapidly, in fact, that I was unable to notice it at first. Is it possible that Saya, a young girl, is actually reading my charts?
なあ、Saya.
She answers coolly, looking up from the charts.
今日はもう疲れたし、寝ないか?
文則がそうしたいならそうする。
Saya replies with a grin. Saya tosses aside the papers she was sorting, then leaps on me and begins to tear off my clothes.
おい。
ねえ、寝る前に一回だけ。
Contrary to her appearance, Saya's appetite for sex would put any adult to shame. You could even say it's a little unnatural. She's not just passionate, she also has unlimited stamina, making me wonder where her slender body gets all the energy from. Never satisfied with letting me feast on her to my heart's content, she always uses me to pleasure herself until I am forced to tap out.
マサヤ、こう毎日続けてちゃ体に毒じゃないのか？
Not necessarily.
ふみのり、どこか具合が悪いの？
いや、僕は別にちゃんと大人の体になってるし平気なんだけど、でもサヤはまだ。
平気だよ。
She laughs playfully as she pushes me onto the bed, the familiar sweet sensation of her weight and skin rendering me helpless.
平気なわけないだろ。今まで否認もしてないってのに。
You should do that. To my astonishment, Saya is completely uninterested in safe sex. She doesn't just eschew protection, she even insists that I ejaculate inside of her. Surely she must know the risks, which can only mean that she wants to get pregnant.
ふみのりはさ、さやに子供を産ませるの嫌？
She whispers, staring straight into my eyes. How can I respond to that?
いやも何も。サヤみたいに小さい体じゃ無理だって。母体の負担ってのは大変なんだぞ。
ふみのりが心配してることって割と的外れなんだけど。
Saya seems unsure how to reply, but not because she doesn't understand what I said. Rather, the bemused look on her face makes it seem as though I'm the one not getting it.
でもそれってふみのりがさやのことを大事に思ってくれてるからなんだよね。それはそれで嬉しい。
She says suddenly, her smile glowing with innocence. By the time I break the spell of her angelic smile, Saya has undone my belt and is removing my pants.
なおい、だからサヤ。
大丈夫。じゃあ今夜はふみのりが心配しないような方法でしてあげる。
She says teasingly as she bares my crotch and wraps her slender white fingers around my penis and testicles. Well, guess I see you in a second.
美味しかったよ、ふみのり。
She looks up at me, answering my confusion by smiling like she just pulled the greatest prank of her life. Her small tongue darts out from her lips to lick away the last milky remnants around her mouth. That tongue was just licking my... The thought sends a whirring jolt of pleasure to my brain.
これだったらふみのりだって心配ないでしょ？
いや、
That's hardly the problem, but I have no idea how to respond.
ねえ、ダメだった？こういうのだと気持ちよくない？
Hearing the sudden nervousness in Saya's voice, I hastily stammer.
そんなことない。十分によかった。
In fact, it felt so good that I thought I'd go crazy, but I can't say that, can I?
でもサヤ、何もあんなもの飲み込まなくたって。
そんな。あれはさやにちょうだいよ。
Suddenly distraught, Saya clings to me like a child who's just had her candy stolen.
ふみのりのは一滴だって残さずに欲しい。さやの中に出してほしいの。
中にって。
So Saya really does want to bear my child? I'm not averse to the idea. I still think it might be too early, of course, but there isn't much point in worrying about my reputation now. Assuming that Saya and I will be left alone, I even welcome it. However, that only explains her appetite for normal sex. I still don't know why she wants to swallow, of all things, during a fellatio. Well, I suppose that what's impure or taboo differs from person to person, and I can't simply apply normal values to Saya.
ふみのりは嫌？
She gazes up at me pleadingly. How can I resist?
嫌なんかじゃないさ。サヤさえそれでいいのなら、僕だって。
You know, it almost seems like she's kind of a succubus or something like that. Saya smiles with relief and burrows contentedly into my chest.
ふみのり大好き。
She purrs softly. With her body draped over mine, I become even more aware of how light and delicate she is. Can this tiny girl and I really live as husband and wife? I feel a pang of self-loathing at the question. How can I still be afraid after all that's happened? Saya's feelings are so earnest, how can I not accept them? I need to resolve once and for all to rid myself of the useless trappings of morality. Saya and I are all that matters. There's no point in worrying about what others think anymore. Although I suppose I should still talk to Saya's guardian, of course. I need to find Dr. Ogai as soon as possible. By the time I drift to sleep in exhaustion's comforting embrace, all doubts about Saya's actions have vanished from my mind. Whatever the case, all that matters is that she's returned to me. "2 o'clock for Suzumi Yosuke. This is the most fulfilling time of day. After seeing his wife and daughter off, taking care of the morning chores and eating a leisurely lunch, it's finally time to sit down at his easel. He is not a particularly popular painter, and he would only hold an exhibition if he were hurting for money. However, the design work he does on the side ensures that there's always enough to support his daily lifestyle. Alongside the salary his wife earns working for a magazine, they're able to pay their mortgage, send their daughter to school, and still have plenty left over. Yosuke's life is perfect, leisurely and absent of want. He loves his house, considering it the symbol of his success. When he mows the lawn, polishes the windows and floors, and cleans the kitchen, toilet and bath, he feels the same joy as he does when washing his own body. Just as he knows the length of his fingernails and the time since his last meal, he also knows everything about his home's condition. The status of every door, the freshness of every flower, the amount of ice in the ice tray, every last detail. This is his pride, and when he sits in his studio, smelling the turpentine and knowing that each element of his house is in perfect order, he feels the ultimate satisfaction. While trying to find the right combination of paints on his palette, he suddenly feels thirsty, but soon remembers that there isn't much orange juice left in the refrigerator. In fact, it's also about time to stock up on bath additive and powdered soap. He could get everything at the supermarket when he goes to shop for dinner, but it'd still probably be quite heavy. Now then, where should I leave off to go shopping? As he ponders this dilemma, he heads downstairs to the kitchen. Just then, a breath of air tickles the back of his neck, bringing him to a halt in the middle of the hallway. A breeze. Impossible. Every window in the house is closed. Yosuke shut them himself during his morning cleaning. Yosuke enters the living room, searching for the source of the breeze. Something stinks. It's the same pungent smell of fetid swampland that emanates from the Sakisaka house. The window facing the yard next door is open, its curtains billowing loosely in the gentle breeze. There's a hole in the glass next to the lock. It looks strange, like it was melted by some chemical instead of broken. Someone must have reached through the hole to unlock the window. Yosuke stands paralyzed, his heart pounding with anger and fear. He listens carefully, but hears nothing. Perhaps the intruder has already finished his business and left, but a burglar wouldn't have left the room untouched, would he? Maybe he heard Yosuke coming and hid somewhere nearby. Yosuke realizes that his still wet palette knife is in his right hand. He must have forgotten to put it aside before going downstairs. He stares numbly at the knife for a moment, then decides that it's not enough protection. Instead, he grabs the ashtray sitting on top of the table. Made of thick, solid glass, it is big and heavy enough to serve as a weapon. The home that he thought of as part of himself now seems utterly alien. Keenly aware of the thumping of his heart, Yosuke looks around the living room and sees little that could be used as a hiding place. The intruder must have gone either to the guest room or through the dining room to the kitchen. The kitchen is close to the stairs. If there had been movement, Yosuke would have noticed it when he came down, which means that the guest room is the most likely place. He shuffles over to the guest room door and prepares to slide it open. But what is that stench? Could the breeze alone carry something so foul? It's as if the odor is coming from inside the room. He readies his ashtray and throws open the door. The straw-matted Japanese-style room is empty. There's a closet, but no one could fit in there. So the intruder already left. Yosuke relaxes, the exhaustion of sudden relief coming over him. And that is when something seizes his ankle. The instant he freezes in shock, his leg is yanked out from under him, sending him crashing to the floor. Stars explode behind his eyes as his head smacks against the door rail. The hand, if it can even be called that, wrapped around Yosuke's ankle extends all the way back to beneath the living room sofa. There are barely 5 centimeters between the sofa and the floor, but the intruder is able to hide in that tiny space. It can't possibly be human. Before the screaming Yosuke can regain his footing, countless hand-like appendages seize his arms and legs, rendering him helpless. A hideous voice burbles in his ear as something cold and soft crawls atop him. Yosuke can't even scream, his terror is so great. Thin, tube-like appendages penetrate his ears and nose, wriggling deep into his skull. Right before the sensation drives him mad, Yosuke loses consciousness. Oh my.